Coronado. I'm so glad you could make it today.
Hi, Mrs. Softful. I'm doing well today. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you. So I asked you to come in today so we can go over Isaac's test scores on the Nationwide Test of Achievement and also some things that he's been doing in class. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to stop me and ask me.
Okay. Sounds good.
Alright, so here we have the Nationwide Test of Achievement, okay? And what this is a test that we took back in March 2014. And this is an achievement test. So what that is saying is this is a test that we take once a year, and it's just to gauge how students are doing from our curriculum and teaching strategies. It's not used to fail the student, and it's used to help see what he's learning in each grade level. So it's nothing to be concerned about. It's just to see how we're helping him and how he's going.
Okay. I was going to ask you what the test is for.
Perfect. Yes, this will help me see what Isaac still needs help with and what his strong points are and his weak points are. Remember, this test was taken back in March, so there are some things that may not have been taught yet, so there may be some low points, but don't worry, as the year goes, we'll go over those and then he'll be fine. And there are some scores that I also don't agree with on this test because of that. And we'll go into further in depth in those once we get to that point. Okay, so I also have a bell curve, which I'm going to show you. And this correlates with the scores on the NTA. This bell curve allows scores to become visual for you, and it will come back later. So let's look at the NTA for now. We'll come back to that. So if you notice the first section, this is just a list of some demographical information, such as my name, the school, district, the student's name, grade, test date, student ID, and the form of the test, okay? Do you have any questions so far?
Yes. What is Form B?
Form B? Form B is just the, it's the way the test is laid out. Has the same questions, it's just to prevent cheating amongst the students. So he's not taking a different test, it's not specialized or anything.
Okay.
It's just to prevent him from copying other students.
Thank you for telling me that.
Yes, and also you can view all this information on Parent Portal. Do you know what that is?
No, I don't.
Okay. Parent Portal is a system online, and it's under the school information where you can actually log in and see how your child is doing on subjects currently. How his conduct is, test scores, immunizations record, library books, everything. You can see his daily life in school.
Okay. Well, thank you for telling me that. I'll have to look at that.
Yes, no problem. I'll write that information down for you so you can take that home with you today. So remember, you can stop me at any time while we're going through this. If you look at the scoring here on the NTA, you'll notice that there are two sections. There are two different types of information. You have the norm and the criterion. We'll look at the norm, or the first section, and then we'll go to the next session. Because I know all this information can be overwhelming. It's a little overwhelming for me sometimes. Not gonna lie. Okay?
Okay.
Any questions? Are we good? Or?
What is the norm?
Perfect question. So the norm is just showing your child how your child did in comparison to a norm group. So a norm group is a group of selected students throughout the nation who have been chosen or pre-selected to take this test, okay, before it has been released. You'll notice that this test covers a wide range of subjects. Okay, like math, you have math, language, reading, you have listening, spelling, science, social studies, okay? It also covers smaller areas within those. So you have vocabulary and word analysis and reading comprehension within reading. And then in math, you have math concepts, problem solving, and procedures within math. So there's subjects within those.
Okay.
You can also see under the reading area of vocabulary compared to the norm. When looking at subjects and areas tested, do you have any questions on that?
Yes, I was wondering, what is basic battery? I don't remember that being like a subject or anything.
Those are good questions. So what basic battery is just how your child is doing in certain subjects that are tested. So that would be like your reading, your math, language, listening, and spelling. Those are the basics that are. And then the complete is everything that's listed here that was tested.
Okay.
That's the only difference between those two. So next on the column of subjects and areas, we'll see columns titled as number of items. raw score, national percentiles. These are not percentages, and they just compare to the norm group. So don't think of them as percentages, even though we refer to them as that, or we say it. You have Stanines, scaled score, percentile bands. So let's look at reading, for example. The number of items tested was 108. The raw score is 83. Do you have any questions so far?
Can you tell me what the raw score is?
The raw score is right here. So it's going to be 83. It is the total number that Isaac answered correctly out of the total numbers of questions, which is 108. So he answered 83 correct out of 108. That was on the test. So looking back at the reading and moving on to the national percentiles, you can see that Isaac scored a 53. I know that 53 might look like it's a low number, but look at the bell curve. So at the bell curve, 53 is going to be right here, okay? I lied to you. If you look at the bell curve, it actually goes from 1, let me explain that real fast to you before I show you where he's at on this. If you go from 1 to 99, you'll see that Isaac is at the 53rd percentile, which is just right here, okay? Which is just above average. Average is 50th percentile, okay? Which is right here. So it's that line that goes all the way down. That's the 50th percentile. You'll see that Isaac scored 53% better than the students in the norm group. However, the 53 is not a percentage, it's a percentile score, okay? So you can read the rest of his scores, and in reference to the norm group, you can see where he's placed on percentiles wise. Now we're going to skip percentile bands for just a minute because they are directly correlated with the percentile scores. When looking at percentile bands, you can see all of the scores with a dot that has a line that goes through it, that correlates with the bell curve.
Okay.
Yes. Let me double check myself. Yes. Okay. This bar represents the standard error of measurement, so the SEM. And what the SEM up here is it's plus or minus 3. I'm not going into that because that will help me better explain it to you. So what that is that's standard error of measurement. So that gives him leeway of if he can do more than plus 3 or minus 3 and still be okay. Like he can still pass this test.
Okay.
So if he were to take the test again, I'm confident he would score somewhere between the 50th and the 56th percentile. That's what that is saying. He has, and
Okay.
he's still an average. So this is done for all percentile scores. When looking at all the percentile bands as a whole, we can quickly conclude that most of the Isaac scores are above the norm group. So that's that line right there, and most of them are over it, if not on it. Okay.
Okay. Does Isaac need to work on any of the areas that is below the average?
Well, let's look at the. I'm going to show the bell curve to you again. If you notice where I highlighted, this is the area where most students score, and Isaac's lowest score is still within that range of the norm. So if the lower scores of areas that can be worked on, but he's not failing. It's just not a very poor percentile is what it is. So he's still good. It's just something we need to work on.
Okay.
That's it. So let's move on to Stanines. And Stanines are easier for parents to understand because down here on the bell curve, Stanines are right here. Okay?
Okay.
Yes. And I am going to grab a highlighter so I can show you that. Stanines. Okay. And so what Stanines represent is it's a score based on dividing the normal distribution into 9 parts. You see 9 parts, right?
Okay.
Where each part is half the standard deviation 1. 1, 2, and 3 are considered lower Stanines. 4, 5, and 6 are middle Stanines, and 7, 8, and 9 are upper Stanines. Okay?
Okay.
That's how you read those scores. So if we look back at the test that he took, for example, if we look at language, let's do language all the way across, okay? He got a 7 in a Stanine. So for that, he is right here. So therefore, you can see that he's upper Stanine, and you can get a real quick read and just see how he did really well on it. However, they're not precise. There's a lot of length between them, but it's easy to read overall. Any questions?
Why is Isaac considered in the upper C9 when he's in like this lower half of the 7, but it's like in the pink.
Okay, so why is it a colored half, but he's still
Yeah.
considered upper?
Uh-huh.
That's a great question. So let's look back at Isaac's national percentile score. So he scored an 81, okay? When looking at Isaac's language, Isaac's percentile score is 81. We can look back at the bell curve and see that is in the higher end of the norm range, okay? And when you go straight down in the stay 9, he falls within that norm range of 7. However, he's still considered an upper stay 9 because 7, 8, and 9 are considered upper stay 9s. It's just the way it's.
Okay.
This is norm group, but in a stay 9, 7, 8, and 9 are just considered uppers. They just
Okay.
bump them up that way. Okay? So we're going to go back to the National Test of Achievement. And the next one we're going to look at is scaled scores. And sometimes we have to average these scores to get a class average until you get your total score. And what that is sometimes the national average, it doesn't equal with your class. You have to kind of do your class first to see where your class, they stand individually. The scaled score takes the raw score and plugs it into the formula and comes out with a scale. And that scale is for the Nationwide Test of Achievement. Is down here. It's down here. Okay? It goes from 200 to 800, okay? And 500 is the average. So for example, if we look at total reading scaled score, right? Isaac scored a 508, which I will highlight that. Okay? And so he's close to the middle, and it's just a little bit above average. So he's just a little bit. Do you have any questions so far?
So what is Isaac's highest and lowest score here?
Okay, well, let's look at his scaled scores on the NTA. So Isaac's highest score is in science, which is a 595. And that is right down here. So he's very close to the 600. He's almost above the norm range is what he is on that one.
Okay.
And then if we look at Isaac's lowest, that would be in math problem solving, which is 475, which puts him right here. He's still in the norm, so he's not failing it. That's just his lowest as far as a scaled score goes. And slightly below, and it just what this shows is he could use improvement on it.
Okay.
Yeah, he understands the concept. He just needs a little bit more work with it. Now we'll move on to criterion referenced information. And what this is this breaks down the information into even more detail. It tells us how Isaac has mastered certain objectives and skills, and it breaks down the skills into more detail for parents. So this is this part down here, okay? So we're going to look at vocabulary, okay? Right here. And we're going to look at vocabulary. And RS is raw score, which is 26. That's how many he got correct out of it. And then the number possible is the number that was on the test total. So he got 26 out of 36 correct. Okay?
Okay.
In peace, the number possible, so then they have a cutoff point. So then you notice that we have low, medium, and high. You're probably wondering what's that mean. He's in the medium range. And what this is this is determined way ahead by a group of content experts. And that just determines where he is based off of that score. So he's in the medium range for that. Then we have subtests. Do you have any questions about the subtest with any of these subjects?
What is structural analysis?
Structural analysis. Structural analysis is the ability to gain information about meaning, pronunciation, parts of speech of a new word from their prefix, roots, suffix. So for example, disagree. The dis and the agree, it combines, and dis means to, it means not or opposite of the word agree. That gives you the word disagree, and the root word is agree.
Okay.
Okay. So, well, if you have any other questions, remember to stop me at any point and I can answer them. So I wanted to start with some of Isaac's strengths. Looking here at the high scores, at the first one, structural analysis, which is what you questioned me about earlier, his raw score is 10. And then he got, the number possible was 10. So he made a perfect score on that one. He scored on the high level because he got all of them right. Structural analysis is reading words with words that end in ed, ing, that sort of thing. He did very well in that area. So I don't see any need for work on that one. He seems to understand and grasp that concept very well. So another high area is language. Thank you. I don't know what I would do without you, parent. So I'm just going to highlight this all because he did really well in this section, okay? And language is composed of capitalization, punctuation, usage, and sentence structure, okay? And he's doing really well here, and I'm seeing that in his writing. From looking at his journal, you can see the detail that Isaac uses in the writing. You can see he writes clearly. In order for me to, I'm able to read it, it makes sense. You can see that he uses correct capitalization at the beginning of sentences, the proper nouns, he knows, names of people, places, and things. And then when it comes to punctuation, he knows when to use periods, he knows when to use commas, he knows when to use the right punctuation in a sentence. Do you write with him a lot at home?
Yes, I do. That's one of the things that we like to do together.
Oh wow, that's awesome. It's really good that you do that together because it really shows him in his work. For sentence usage, I cannot say that word. For sentence usage, thank you. He's not saying I was, he says I have. Do you correct him when he's speaking?
Yes, I do. I don't have to do that very often, though.
Okay, that is showing up also in his writing. His general structure is good. He writes the complete sentence, not just part of it. Therefore, Isaac is writing complete thoughts, and he's using the complete sentence structure as well. So that's very good. Isaac has also... Oh, another high score is science, which is right here. Okay, and in science, we're going to look at life science because he scored another perfect score of 7 out of 7 with this one. And his raw score is 7. His number possible was 7, and he's considered high because he got all of them right. So when we look here, we can see that Isaac loves zoology in particular. Does he ever talk about wild animals and wanting to protect them?
Isaac has talked about liking science, that he does really well in this subject, but he hasn't really gone into any detail about it.
Okay, well that surprises me because we actually did a research project a while back where the students had to pick an animal and they had to look up the information about it. And Isaac really went to town with this. I mean, he picked African elephants. I don't know if you know that was his favorite animal. But he picked that as the animal, and I noticed that when him and his partner were researching the African elephant, that he became very passionate about conserving their habitats and its species as a whole. In fact, I have a picture of his project you can look at, and you can even see he went further into detail. He added more animals, and he really did a good job on this. So now we're going to look at some low areas of his. So you can see in phonetic analysis of consonants, okay? We're gonna look at that one in particular because he got 6 out of, his raw score was 6, his number possible is 11. So that means he got 6 out of 11. I know to me that he got more than half right, but he's still considered low for that. So what phonetic analysis is in consonants is it's going over sounds such as consonant blends and consonant digraphs. Do you have any questions about what those are? Or
What are consonant blends and consonant digraphs?
So consonant blends are words, for example, like BR, ST, WR, and GR. When they blend it together, it's like burr, like breeze, and then you have like like graze. So it's the consonant blend of the two consonants coming together and forming that one sound. Okay. You also have, with the digraph, it's a diagram with a picture, and it has that certain picture that matches that sound. So like sheep, you have the sh, like the SH or the SC sound. So they have to figure out which sound goes with that word in that picture. So, do you have any other questions with consonant blends and consonant digraphs?
No.
Okay, well I did want to mention some things that I'm going to do for Isaac in class and what can be done to help him at home with his phonetic analysis consonants. So in class, when he reads, I don't interrupt him. I let him finish reading, and then I go back over, once he's done reading, I ask him to restate the word that he messed up on or that he stated wrong and emphasize on that consonant blend that was stated in the word. To help him at home, it'd be very beneficial if someone would read with him and focus on the words. Don't interrupt him when he's reading, but just, silently correct him, or after he's done reading, just go back and restate the word with him. That would really help a lot. For example, like sheep, focus on the sh sound and have him say it with you, like sh, and then sheep, that way he hears it. Or another one's like grass, the it's like grass. And also in class, we're going to also play games. He's going to be very interactive on the computers. He's going to be taking home games too with him today. That focus on constant blends and constant digraphs. This will help him by having both of us, by sending this home and by doing it in class, this will really benefit him by working together. Okay, so then also down here on another low score is measurement in math. Thank you. And you'll see that his raw score is 5 and his number possible is 8, and this is considered low. Once again, you see that he scored more than half, but he's still considered low. You have any questions so far?
Why is he considered low even though he got more than half of those correct?
That's actually a good question. So looking at the total correct compared to the number of items that were actually tested, you can see there weren't many items tested, and that's why he's considered low for this area. However, I don't agree with it, because in class he does really well in measurement. And I can show you some of his work, which is right here, and you can see he understands measurement. He grasped measuring length and different objects, and he got them all correct. Okay, so overall, Isaac is doing really well. Do you have any other questions about these scores or about any of Isaac's schoolwork?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, I'm going to send this home with you, a copy of his test scores and also the blending game. And if you have any questions later you may think of, you feel free to contact me and we can set up another time, another conference to discuss your questions, comments, or concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for coming in, Ms. Granado. Your son is wonderful. I'm glad to have him in my class. Now this.